Hey everyone, it's Mariana, and this is the end of Game of Thrones. So, this will be the last episode recap and review for me for this series. I have some things to say. As always, spoiler alert, even though I am pretty sure if you're watching this, you have either already seen the episode or have been sufficiently spoiled by everyone else. So, either way, let's get into it. Let's talk about Game of Thrones Season 8, Episode 6. The Iron Throne. Here's the thing, and I am going to warn you right now, this video is going to get a little bit ranty, so just a warning, be ready for that. But the thing is, you guys know how much I love Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones has been my show. It has been my thing for years, and even the very first video I posted on this channel was a Game of Thrones video. At that point, it was season 4. There's no other fictional universe that I have been invested in for this long or to this extent. I have never hate-watched Game of Thrones, and I've never pretended like it did everything right. I loved it as it was. I have been rooting for it, I have defended it, and I have been here for the entirety of season 8 hoping they were going to bring it all together for the ending, and any missteps that they've had were going to be worth it in the end. I don't want to be sitting here and telling you how much I am freaking disappointed by this finale, but that's where we are. This is also where I would like to say no. I do not feel like I've wasted 8 years of my life watching this or anything like that, or that now the rest of the show is completely ruined by this mess of an ending. I don't really have that point of view. I truly do believe that the ending does not erase hours and hours and hours of this amazing TV series. It is still, in my mind, the best TV series that has ever existed. You can argue with that one, but for me, yes, it is my favorite series of all time. Also, in my experience, endings aren't really ever that satisfying. It's really difficult to do a satisfying ending for an epic story. So for me, it's the journey that matters a lot more. But man, was I annoyed by this episode. I did not think that it was all bad. I thought there were some parts that were really good and that were done really well, and particularly on my second viewing, I was able to enjoy a lot more of this episode and focus on these parts that were done well, but man, in general, the resolution and the lack of reasoning and logic in this whole thing. Why did you do this, HBO? So let's start at the beginning, where we see Tyrion walking through the ashes of King's Landing, probably thinking that Varys was right. It's an awful sight. All of the skeletons and half-burned bodies. It is effective, for sure, but I am glad this was a short part of his walk that we saw, because we already saw so much of this horrifying perspective from Arya and Jon in the previous episode. This little walk motivates Tyrion to turn to Jon and say, "I'll find you later," which is totally where I thought he was going to go and try to kill Dany. Here's the thing, I did not look at any of the leaks. That's just not something I ever do. And this entire week leading up to the episode, I've been racking my brain about what would finally make Jon turn on Daenerys and kill her, because I was very sure that he was going to kill her. I thought maybe she threatens Sansa and that was going to be the trigger for Jon, or maybe Arya tries to kill her and fails and gets sentenced to death or something like that. So when I heard Tyrion say this, I thought, ooh, maybe he is going to try to kill her, and then that's how he's going to get executed, and somehow this is going to lead to a chain of events that will eventually get to Jon killing Daenerys and realizing that she is not the ruler who was promised. But nope, he's just going to see if there's a chance that Jaime and Cersei made it out alive, which it makes sense. We've known he is loyal to his family, and I think any reasonable person in that situation would care if their family made it out or not. So he goes to the tunnels under the Red Keep, finds all the rubble, and his brother and sister, which could have been a really cheesy moment, but Peter Dinklage's performance is so good, and we had the Reigns of Castamere in the background. I actually ended up loving this and getting quite emotional about the whole situation. As much as the writers were failing Tyrion in these past few seasons, Peter Dinklage has always pulled through with his amazing acting, and so his portrayal of Tyrion will always be the most memorable, one of the most memorable for sure, and best parts of the show. Does the way they shot this scene make it look like Cersei and Jaime could have been completely fine if they just moved over a bit? Yeah, not to mention that in episode 5 it looked like the entire ceiling collapsed, but honestly, I am not that bothered by it because this episode has bigger problems. Next, we get that victory speech from Daenerys and one of the most amazing shots of the entire series with Drogon spreading his wings behind her as she's walking. The speech is completely in line with her previous ones, except now we're talking about Westeros with the people and houses we care about, and her burning tendencies are a lot more evil to us all of a sudden because, once again, these are the people we care about, especially after we saw that ground perspective of the attack. But basically, the war is not over, and she wants to keep liberating people all over the world, particularly in Westeros. Tyrion is not happy. Arya is not happy. Jon is not happy, although I'm not even sure if Jon and Arya understand what she is saying in this speech because I don't think they speak High Valyrian, but whatever. Nobody except for the Unsullied and the Dothraki and maybe like a few rogue Northmen are happy about it. Side note, I don't even know why Arya is there to begin with. Didn't she ride off on her white horse at the end of last episode? It wasn't the whole thing that she is done with revenge and the Hound convinced her that letting revenge consume your life is not that great, so she is getting the hell out of the city? I guess not. At some point, she turned that horse around because reasons. So, Tyrion throws his Hand of the Queen pin away because Daenerys slaughtered the city and she orders for him to be taken away. Meanwhile, Jon is taking it all in. He's been doing a lot of that this season, just taking things in. I've realized I really don't like what they did to his character and how they led him to where he ended up at the end of this episode. I will talk more about this in my season 8 review overall, but in general, just somewhere between season 7 and season 8, his character really fell apart and became more frustrating than the whiny Jon Snow from season 1. But anyways, he goes to talk to Tyrion, and Tyrion tries to talk some sense into Jon, who is set on defending Dany against any kind of common sense argument because, according to him, she is not her father. Did you see her burning people? You were right there. We also find out that Tyrion loves Dany, which is information he casually brings up in this conversation. I know this is a small detail, but just what? So all of those brooding looks from Tyrion to Dany and Jon in previous episodes and seasons were meant to tell us that he is in love with her. Are you kidding me right now? And the writers saved this little bit of information for the last episode to be revealed as some kind of oh shit moment that matters when really this has no significance when it comes to the overall picture and does not matter whatsoever. Just like some other things, as it turns out. So I don't even know what this retrospective love triangle is here for. Anyway, Jon is going to see Dany now, and we get another really cool shot of Drogon rising from the snow. Love that. Dany, in the meantime, is in the throne room, bringing us back to that vision from the House of the Undying all the way from season 2. Jon comes in, tries to talk some sense into Dany, but the things she says just confirm Tyrion's words from earlier about her being convinced that whatever she does is right and that the others don't get to choose. So Jon says, "You are my queen, now and always," and stabs her. The placement of this scene seemed really off to me. It just seems like something that should end an episode as a culmination of events, and then we should have an entire episode after that that deals with fallout and consequences and wrapping things up. Or it could have been something they have really built up to in the previous episode and have this event open the final episode and be the catalyst for the aftermath. That could have been the thing too, but halfway through the episode, it just feels misplaced to me. Let me know if any of you feel the same way, and in general, this season is missing an episode or 4. Other than that, a really sad moment on its own. Even though the entirety of this season and season 7, if we're being honest, was rushed, and all of these particular developments were rushed, we still knew that that's where we were going. At least a lot of us knew, I think. So the scene worked for me if I just consider it as a separate scene, especially with Drogon showing up and his upset screeching. It was really sad. It was pretty heartbreaking. But then, Drogon displays more intelligence than anyone else on the show and melts the throne down, because apparently he understands that even though it was Jon who stabbed his mom, the throne is the actual cause of all death and misfortune. You could say that there's general fantasy dragon lore out there that says that dragons are highly intelligent, but guys, we never established it in this show in particular, at least not to this extent, so all of a sudden, Drogon is a genius. That being said, I have been rooting for the throne to be destroyed in the finale for a while. That thing brought nothing but misery to the characters of the story, so my hope was that the wheel was going to be broken as per Dany's wishes in the form of destroying the throne and splitting the kingdoms. But no, this is where this episode started melting my brain entirely, because the second half of the episode is some of the craziest shenanigans I have ever seen in a TV show. It is not as bad as True Blood or Dexter, but we were getting there. So there is a time jump. We don't get a reaction to Dany's death from her followers or from anyone at all. It's not like she became queen after burning down the entire city or anything. We don't get to see how anyone finds out that Jon killed Dany. We're just assuming his honorable self turned himself in, because it's not like there's a body there to confirm this. We don't get an explanation of why Grey Worm didn't just execute Jon the Queenslayer on the spot, considering he was executing Lannister soldiers left and right this episode, despite them laying down their weapons. We don't get any of the Lords of Westeros caring about all of those letters Varys was writing in episode 5 about Jon being the rightful heir to the throne. We don't even know who some of these noble lords are at the council. But you know what we do get? We get to find out that there is nothing in the world more powerful than a good story. And who has a better story than Bran the Broken?
Oh, no. 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 No, 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 no.
Honestly, I don't even know where to start with that scene. Grey Worm starting off telling Tyrion he is not here to speak, but then promptly letting him nominate a king? Most of the people on that council having no idea what being a three-eyed raven means? Sansa asking for northern independence because they don't want to kneel even though the new king is a Stark? I guess we can pretend that she's thinking of future generations here, but that's just me filling in the gaps for the writers. Yara not asking for the independence that Dany promised the Iron Islands? Or how about Bran's qualifications for the position of the king that are questionable at best? Yeah, okay, he's the keeper of stories and he knows all the things. Great. Sounds like a solid advisor to me. But a king who doesn't care about anyone or anything? I just don't know how lack of empathy or lack of love for the people of Westeros makes you a good option for king. I especially love how not too long ago, Bran was saying how he can't be lord of anything because he's the three-eyed raven now, and how he doesn't want anything anymore, and he's not really Bran anymore. But all of a sudden, this episode, he's all like, Why do you think I came all this way? And if we're to assume that Bran can see the future, if we're to gather that from his visions and his dialogue, and his whole thing is everything that happened brought us to this moment, does that mean that he let thousands of people die so he could become king? What the hell, Bran? So then he punishes Tyrion by giving him his dream job of Hand of the King, but exiles Jon because, you know, he's done all the dirty work, like taking Winterfell back and bringing Dany to their side so they can fight the army of the dead. And then finally freeing Westeros by killing Mad Queen Dany after Cersei has been dealt with. And now we don't need Jon, so bye. Him staying would start a war. Okay then. It's not like the Unsullied sailed away or anything. Look, I get it. Jon doesn't want the crown, and it's not the resolution itself that annoys me so much. It's how we got there. It's the fact that the writers didn't seem to put that much thought into making things consistent with the rest of the show, or even with some of the things that have been said this actual season. Even with how inconsistent the writing has been lately, there was still a chance for the writers to stick the landing, and they didn't. They got to the final points in a very rushed, sloppy, and just unsatisfying way, which is a huge bummer, especially for the main characters. Even the entire "this is the wheel our queen wanted to break" thing. Yeah, the rulers will be chosen by lords and ladies of Westeros, but you still have the same noble families at that council, and you still have one person ruling over multiple kingdoms. So in the end, you still have a king or queen who needs the support of the same old families to rule a very large amount of people. That is not breaking the wheel, that is kind of just tweaking the wheel a little bit. That's destroying the symbol of power, the throne itself, but really the power behind the symbol remains. You know what would have actually broken the wheel? Realizing that handling that much power is too much for one person, giving every kingdom their independence and letting the rulers of these kingdoms make their own decisions and forge alliances. I'm a little upset about this Bran the Broken thing, can you tell?
I'm upset!
And then there's the new small council. Let me tell you guys about my feelings regarding Sir Bronn of the Blackwater, Lord of Highgarden, Lord Paramount of the Reach, and Master of Coin.
Fuck me gently with the chainsaw.
Now that is fan service. You guys were talking about Jaime and Brienne being fan service? No. This is a character who should have died a while ago and who was kept around without much writing effort because he was loved by the audience and given a happy ending in the finale. Wow. Also, Sam, the dropout of the Citadel as the Grand Maester? Really? Okay. Bran asking about them missing a Master of Whisperers? Once again, really? Is this a badly delivered joke, or did Bran kind of forget that he knows all and sees all? Brienne also apparently kind of forgot she was sworn to protect Sansa, the current queen in the north, because she's at King's Landing for some reason. And in the end, all of the Starks have gone their separate ways. We have spent most of the show rooting for them to reunite. These characters have spent years trying to get back to each other. We have heard over and over that the lone wolf dies, but the pack survives. But I guess none of that matters now because they all have their own things to do. What a payoff. This, once again, has to do with the way things are written. The story has been incredibly rushed for the past 2 seasons, and it is just inconsistent with the detailed and complex storytelling of the earlier seasons. Now it's just, they all lived happily ever after. The end. This is not the kind of storytelling we fell in love with, and this ending is not an earned ending. It was absolutely possible to have all of these characters end up where they ended up by the end of the episode, but make it feel organic, make the development make sense, and have this story have time to breathe. So with the final shots, Jon arrives at the wall. He is greeted by Tormund, and we see Ghost. He pets Ghost. I hope you guys are happy about it, because there are a lot of unhappy people about Jon not petting Ghost. Sansa looks amazing in her dress and crown. I absolutely loved it. And in the last shots that kind of mirror the opening shots of the entire series, Jon leaves with the wildlings. Now, apparently, this is meant to signify that he is going to be ranging the true north, which is an ending I absolutely reject. You cannot explain this to me because you did not make this clear within the episode. My interpretation is that he is now the king beyond the wall, and that is the ending for Jon Snow that I am sticking with. So that is it. That's it for my recap, my final recap of season 8 and my final recap of Game of Thrones in general. We will be talking about prequels once those air, or one prequel that airs. Whatever prequel situation happens, I will be reviewing that on this channel. But yeah, as you can tell, the second half of this episode was highly unsatisfying and disappointing for me. And once again, I'm not coming from a place where I hate watch the show, or I was looking to dislike an ending, or I was set in my ways of how things were going to turn out. You know, I just wanted things to make sense. I just wanted character actions to be consistent with their developments, and to see such a fantastic show with such fantastic potential, with this complex world and this complex lore and these wonderful characters and amazing actors portraying these characters, to see all of that just fall apart at the end because the writers didn't care to finish it properly, it's just highly disappointing to me as a fan. And just, I don't know, I'm clearly not happy with it, and I really wanted to love this episode, and I didn't. And yeah, that's kind of what I have to end on. As I mentioned, I will be making a video talking about season 8 as a whole, because I still have the 2 big episodes to talk about. I know I skipped recaps for those. So I will be talking about the Bells and the Long Night and season 8 as a whole in my kind of spoiler discussion / review of the entire season. That is coming up hopefully soon. I'm working on it. So as always, thank you guys for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what you thought about this episode in the comments below, and if you have felt as strongly about it as I did. If you did enjoy this video, which I hope you did, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up, share it, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I hope you're having an amazing day, and I will see you very soon in my next one. Bye!